This is the first time that I'm speaking about it. It's something that I'll never forget, actually.
A former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs speaking out in a new interview with new allegations about wild parties and drug use.
There is no denying that the glamorous realm of entertainment and music frequently conceals a more sinister and twisted reality behind the scenes, and one man who has recently been making headlines for all the wrong reasons is none other than Shaw Diddy CS. But what if explosive accusations destroyed the public's perception of this music mogul who has built an empire on charm, talent, and charisma? Today, we're delving into one of the most startling allegations yet, a former employee's unsettling story of the connections Diddy allegedly forced people to make in order to maintain his good graces.
This is somebody that actually thought that he was above the law. So I can only, think that, he was sloppy in the way that he did these crimes, that there's probably a trail of evidence, not only involving him, but everybody in his circle that he would, delegate these responsibilities to.
Philip Hines believed he was getting when he joined Diddy as his personal assistant in 2019, but what he signed up for and what he ended up experiencing were two completely different realities that would leave him emotionally scarred and make him doubt everything he thought he knew about the man he once admired. Imagine this: a young, driven professional lands a dream job working for one of the biggest names in the music industry. He's surrounded by fame, fortune, and the promise of success.
He was responsible for Diddy's day-to-day life, so he is able to provide a lot of information about what that life was like. He goes into detail on extensive use.
Philip, who worked closely with Diddy from 2019 to 2021, saw the opportunity as his big break at first. He was the man behind Bad Boy Records, the creator of some of the greatest hip-hop hits in history, and a cultural icon who seemed to have it all. However, according to Philly, working for Diddy came with a price that went far beyond the long hours and demanding expectations typically associated with the entertainment industry. From the beginning, Philip noticed that loyalty wasn't just valued in Diddy's world, it was demanded, and the way he allegedly tested that loyalty was nothing short of horrifying. Philip's story starts innocently enough. He was hired to help Diddy with the day-to-day tasks of maintaining his multi-million empire of dollars. Obtaining dry cleaning, coordinating schedules, and running errands were typical parts of the job. But as time went on, Philip claims he was pulled deeper into what he describes as a toxic and abusive environment where the lines between professional duties and personal boundaries became increasingly blurred. He says it wasn't long before he realized that working for Diddy wasn't just a job, it was a test of how far someone was willing to go to prove their devotion.
Good morning, Michael. At this point, we've all probably heard about these infamous parties. Diddy's assistant now giving us details about what he says were called Wild King Nights.
Philip fought back tears in an emotional interview for a recent documentary series as he described one of the most traumatic events in his life. He claims that one night, while Diddy was hosting one of his famous private gatherings, he was called upstairs for what he believed to be another routine task, but what he found there was anything but ordinary. According to Philip, Diddy, who had been drinking heavily all night, looked him in the eye and told him that if he wanted to remain in his inner circle, he needed to prove his loyalty. The alleged demand was to perform an intimate act with a partygoer while Diddy watched.
A lot of times you have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
Philip claims that he was totally unprepared for what was happening and that he froze, unable to comprehend it. This wasn't a request, but rather an order that was given with sufficient force to make it obvious that refusing would have dire repercussions. Diddy allegedly pulled him in the direction of the waiting visitor, gave him a tiny object, and patted him on the shoulder like a coach getting ready to send a player into a game. Philip talked about feeling imprisoned and afraid of what would occur if he disobeyed. He said that his worry was not only of losing his job but also of Diddy's fury, which he claimed to have seen firsthand several times.
In the moment, it just felt like, what? Like, is this fun for him? Is this a test?
Philip's account is made even more terrifying by the background information he gives about the environment around Diddy at the time, where he claims that everyone in Diddy's inner circle was aware of the lengths he would go to in order to keep control over those around him. According to Philip, he witnessed workers being reduced to tears, verbally abused, and even physically threatened for the slightest perceived infections. He asserts that Diddy's temper was erratic and that the power dynamics in the home made it obvious that no one was safe from his outbursts. Philip claims that this atmosphere of manipulation and fear prevented him from defending himself that evening.
Wait a minute. Say that again. Say that again. Back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes. But
yes.
The shopping thing is...
Yes, there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood. But one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of.
Philip says that as he reluctantly completed the ACT, his mind was racing with questions like, is this a test? Is this a test for Diddy's entertainment? Did he even realize the damage he was causing? The experience left Philip feeling helpless and humiliated, and he claims that it marked a turning point in his relationship with Diddy because from that point on, he saw his boss not as a mentor or role model, but as a predator who thrived on taking advantage of the weaknesses of those around him.
Sounds like there was probably a lot of hidden cameras as well. Is that what is being talked about?
Yes, this was actually in his Atlanta home, at a home he had in Atlanta at one point. And it does seem that the person isn't like looking into the video, so it's, to me, doesn't seem like that person knows they're being videotaped. It doesn't seem like they're active participant in the videotaping.
Philip claims that in the days and weeks that followed, he found it difficult to accept what had happened. He buried his feelings and threw himself into his work, telling himself that this was just a part of the job, but the guilt and shame kept eating away at him until he could no longer ignore the toll it was taking on his mental health. Eventually, Philip decided to leave his position, walking away from what he once believed to be his dream job. But even after separating himself from Diddy, he says the emotional scars persisted. Philip's decision to come forward wasn't an easy one. He claims he struggled with the fear of reprisals, and the stigma of coming forward. Asha's story has since become a major focus of the legal battles currently surrounding Diddy as more and more people come forward with their own accusations against the music mogul. He was a victim, but ultimately felt it was his duty to expose the darker side of the entertainment industry in a world where power influence can frequently shield those who abuse it from accountability.
Did Phil explain why he's speaking out now?
He said he's speaking out because he believes Diddy's a predator. He wants accountability, and he doesn't want someone like this to run unchecked in the future.
Philip's account is particularly noteworthy because it echoes other stories that have surfaced in recent months, such as the claims of coercion and abuse and the controlling behavior detailed by several accusers. These stories paint a picture of a man who used his position of power to intimidate and manipulate those around him, and although Diddy has strongly denied all of the accusations, arguing that they are part of a coordinated effort to damage his reputation, the sheer volume of them has prompted questions about the culture of silence that permitted such behavior to continue for such a long time.
You know, it's still pretty early in the proceedings. I think it's only been about a month or a month and a half since he's been arraigned and held in detention. And so the investigations are always going to be a continuous and ongoing process. I'm sure at this point there's been an exchange of discovery. And not only that, but I think there's been a gag order placed on the attorneys with information that they can and cannot share. But more importantly,
the Philip case also draws attention to the larger problem of abuse. His experience serves as a reminder of the significance of holding powerful individuals accountable in the music industry, where pressure to succeed can frequently leave people open to exploitation. As more information comes to light, it's evident that the fallout from these allegations will have far-reaching implications for the industry as a whole, as well as for Diddy. As we move into the next chapter of this unfolding saga, the question remains, how deep does the rabbit hole go? With new lawsuits and testimonies appearing nearly every week, the accusations against Diddy have become a topic of conversation about power privilege and accountability in the entertainment industry. There is little doubt that this story is far from over.
A woman is accusing Sean Diddy Combs of drugging and raping her when she was 16 years old in 2000.
As more lawsuits and testimonies pour in, it's impossible to ignore the eerie similarities between these claims, which suggests that Diddy's alleged behavior was not only deliberate, but systematic. The allegations against Diddy Combs have exploded into a web of disturbing claims, and what began as isolated incidents now appears to be part of a much larger pattern. Philippines' shocking account, as heartbreaking as it is far from the only story painting a grim picture of what life was like for those in Diddy's orbit. These accounts reveal a culture of control, fear, and manipulation that seems to have permeated every inch of his empire.
That fact in of itself is a big deal, because when you're talking about going back in time and talking about these allegations from other alleged victims, you know, there's not a lot of police reports, but you guys actually have one. And is that going to be revealed? Are we going to be able to see it?
Yes, as soon as I file my lawsuit in civil court, I will be attaching the...
With his empire encompassing music, fashion, and business, Diddy has long been seen as an untouchable emblem of success. However, if the accusations are to be accepted, there is a darker reality beyond the glamorous facade, one in which war power was used as a weapon. Although Philippine's story may have set the stage for others to come forward with their own terrifying testimonies, many of them echoing the same themes of coercion, intimidation, and boundary-crossing demands. This raises the question of whether this was a single instance of one man abusing his power, or if there was a larger, more sinister scheme at work. Let's take a moment to consider the larger picture and consider the past few months Diddy has been hit with numerous lawsuits, each more stunning than the one before it. These cases cover a broad spectrum of allegations, from bodily harm to mental manipulation, and the specifics are as startling as they are upsetting. Cassie Venter, his ex-partner, made one of the most well-known accusations when she sued him in November 2023. Cassie characterized her relationship with Diddy as a nightmare, full of threats of ongoing surveillance and acts intended to deprive her of her independence. According to the lawsuit, Diddy was a domineering person who followed her around and forced her into circumstances from which she felt helpless.
He is very, very dominant. Like, he wants to control the situation. He wants to control his inner circle. He wants to make everyone have a good time and enjoy his parties. And so, you know, it is scary, because you think, you know, this person or possibly his social network or the people he's around could make or break your career.
Possibly. Even more concerning is the way Cassie's allegations support those of other accusers, such as Philippines, who both speak of a culture that valued loyalty above all else and shown that it frequently came at a personal price. Diddy even went so far as to say he would damage youngster-sized property as a display of power, according to Cassie, who said that he had threatened to hurt another artist, Kid Psy, just because she had expressed interest in him. These allegations point to a concerning pattern in which Diddy reportedly used fear and intimidation to keep people under control. However, Cassie is not the first complainant to come forward. Another accuser, who went by the name Jane Doe, filed the case, declaring that she was coerced into circumstances that left her severely traumatized. Her testimony adds even more depth to the developing story of exploitation and control. She explained how she was lured into Diddy's world under the pretense of opportunity, only to find herself in circumstances where her independence was taken away, similar to Philip and Cassie. The narrative of Jane Doe highlights a recurrent motif. It is stated that Diddy fostered an atmosphere in which everyone felt compelled to abide by his demands, regardless of how awkward or demeaning they were.
You know, if you say the wrong thing or you complain or you know, I don't know, there's an element where you're just, I guess, manipulated in a way to make you feel like, oh, you have to please everyone around you. You can't say anything wrong. You don't want to say a bad thing, or, you know, when they're constantly asking you, would you like to do drugs? And you're like, well, I don't do drugs. And they're like, well, why don't you do drugs? And so, like, it's...
After that, a man named Nathan came out with a series of accusations regarding what transpired behind closed doors. Nathan recalled being drawn into situations where he felt like a mere pawn in Diddy's intricate games, coerced into engaging in activities that left him feeling both used and powerless, and situations that were meticulously planned, with every action seemingly choreographed to reinforce Diddy's control. Nathan's testimony adds yet another viewpoint to the mounting charges. demonstrating that Diddy's alleged behavior appears to have pervaded his contacts with people in his inner circle rather than being restricted to any particular victim or circumstance.
I don't know I don't know the consequences of what that could have been. So I didn't really talk about it. I should have gone to the police. I should have said something other than to my agent. I'm just thankful that there was somebody there. There was somebody at that party who helped me, because I could have ended up in a really bad situation.
What's most remarkable about these accounts is that they all seem to indicate a deliberate and calculated pattern of behavior. These are not isolated incidents. Rather, they're part of a larger narrative that suggests Diddy allegedly created an environment where power dynamics were heavily skewed in his favor. Whether it's Nathan describing carefully planned scenarios, or Cassie feeling trapped in a toxic relationship, or Philip being forced into a humiliating situation to prove his loyalty, Diddy's alleged actions seem to have been intended to deprive people of their agency, leaving them feeling helpless and unable to fight back.
He was using, allegedly, these events to invite them back to these private mansion parties and hotel parties and God knows what else. But he was utilizing the branded events to be able to, get the girls to come over to his private spaces.
Naturally, Diddy has refuted the accusations made against him, with his legal team stating that they are unfounded and driven by greed. In reaction to Cassie's lawsuit, his attorneys released a statement denouncing her claims as ludicrous lies and asserting that they were a part of a concerted attempt to harm his reputation, much like in the case of Jane Doe. Although Diddy's team said that her accusations were an attempt to take advantage of his wealth and position, it is impossible to discount these claims as mere opportunism given the volume of them and their striking parallels.
I'm not surprised with the decision. I'm surprised that Judge Subramanian entertained it. He held a 2-hour hearing, which we were covering live, and he issued a 5-page written order. Most other judges, including the 2 previous judges, to consider this issue, summarily denied the bail motion. I think a lot of it stems from Judge Subramanian being a newer judge. This is a Biden appointee.
Diddy's legal disputes have also exposed the alleged lengths he and his team went to in order to prevent these reports from being public. Several accusers have stated that they were given financial incentives to remain silent, with some even claiming that they were threatened or coerced into withdrawing their claims. These claims imply that the culture of control permeated Diddy's business dealings as well as his personal relationships, fostering an atmosphere where people felt compelled to comply. One particularly disturbing instance of this was revealed in Philip Pine's interview, where he talked about a time when he thought about speaking out about what he had gone through, but was reminded of the repercussions. He said Diddy had AA means of emphasizing that anyone who disobeyed him would suffer consequences, including legal action, public humiliation, or worse. This fear of reprisals appears frequently in Diddy's accusations, with accusers expressing a sense of powerlessness that prevented them from coming forward earlier.
I agree, and the risk of flight was always going to be a tough argument for the government because obviously Combs voluntarily came to New York. He surrendered his passports through his lawyer. He could have fled after the March raids of his Miami and Los Angeles homes, but he didn't. He has access to 2 private jets. I think it was a tougher argument. I know the government made the argument, but clearly the best argument was the dangerousness and the witness tampering.
Even though Diddy's legal team has been quick to deny these claims, the public is starting to turn against him as more and more people come forward with their own stories, adding to the growing body of evidence against him. These accounts, which come from former partners and employees, paint a picture of a man who allegedly thrived on control and manipulation, using his power and influence to silence those who dare to challenge him.
What it shows, what the complaint is illustrating, is this completely out of control party on a super yacht, including various celebrities, that when you read it, it kind of rings true. I mean, when you read it, it doesn't come off as being something that's...
Diddy's empire brands and business associates have begun to distance themselves from him as a result of these accusations, and his once glistening reputation has suffered greatly. However, the biggest effect may be the cultural change these accusations have brought about by coming forward. As the legal battles continue, one thing is certain: this is only the beginning. The accusations against Diddy have sparked a much larger discussion about the darker side of an industry that frequently permits powerful figures to operate with impunity. Their stories serve as a reminder that no one is above accountability, regardless of how successful or influential they may be. Even while Diddy insists he is innocent, the increasing number of people speaking out against him indicates that this story is far from done. Power, privilege, and accountability in the entertainment sector. The current question is not only whether Diddy will be held accountable for his alleged actions, but also what this means for a music industry that has long been beset by similar scandals. Will this be the first time the music industry faces its darker realities, or will it simply be another chapter in a lengthy history of complicity and silence? Until the next Botel drops, feel free to contribute your ideas, hypotheses, and insights in the comment box. Continue to be interested and carry on the discourse. For now, goodbye.